Pressure. Good morning. Well, a great pleasure to see so many of you here this morning. Thank you so much, Baroness Altman, for that introduction. I'm afraid that I am in no way as technologically able, so there will be no PowerPoint slides from me. Just about holding onto a bit of paper is going to be my limit. But it's a great pleasure to be with you at the launch of the Breaking Up is Hard to Do report. Thank you to everyone at Relate who has worked so hard in producing it, of course not least Dr. David Marchbanks, its author. And I would also like to thank colleagues from the Department of Work and Pensions for commissioning this important report. I know that you at Relate have worked with a wide spectrum of distinguished specialists and professionals in preparing it. Officials from the Ministry of Justice, of course, in the spirit of this cross-government cooperation, have been very, very happy to give our support as well. And many of your findings chime so soundly with my own views on family justice. You want families to have the information and tools that they need to make informed decisions. You want to give families the very best possible chances of reaching a secure and stable arrangement. You want to help as many families as possible to find their own solutions rather than falling into court proceedings which can be expensive and unnecessary. And so do I. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. I've met a very good number of the people in this room already since I took up the post of Family Justice Minister just a few months ago, and I've visited family courts, I've met judges, I've met CAFCAS practitioners, families going through separation. I've made it a priority to meet as many people as I possibly can who work in this such important area of justice. But I haven't met every single one of you, and I promise I will. I'm working on it at the moment. But in the meetings I've had, I have been impressed, so impressed, by the professionals who work together to support separating couples to make the best decisions about their children and their families and their finances. Many of these people share my own views that the system could work so much better for separating couples and does not yet consistently or sufficiently put children first. Now, we know it's very sad when a family breaks up, and we obviously know that an acrimonious split between parents can have a damaging effect on children. We know that when children are drawn into conflict, it can lead to both emotional and behavioural difficulties. We know that children benefit most from cooperative parenting following a separation and a positive relationship between both of their parents. But from speaking to people who work in family justice, as well as those who go through it, I know that people feel there is no single source of authoritative, accessible information or advice on what they can do to resolve their disputes. Our own new research set out in the Varying Paths to Justice report tells us that people actually have a strong preference for avoiding court to resolve their disputes. They see court as daunting. They see it as confrontational, particularly in relation to child arrangement, but they're not aware of the options available to them to resolve their problems themselves. And they feel that there's no clear route for those who want to avoid litigation, and this cannot continue. I want to build a family justice system around the needs of its users, with a particular focus on the most vulnerable, whether these are children, whether these are vulnerable adults, or whether these are victims of domestic violence. We want to support people during this period, which may well be the most stressful of their lives. And I want to support and incentivise separating and separated couples to make their own arrangements for their children and their finances wherever possible. There need to be clear alternatives to court that help separating couples work together to make arrangements that are appropriate to their own individual circumstances. Where there are children involved, parents should have the tools to help them make arrangements that are sustainable and that can be revisited in light of the needs of their children as they change. And this needs to happen in a way that in court cases it cannot. Where couples are making arrangements about their finances, they should have a clear understanding of what is fair. I want to foster a cultural change to enable people to solve their own disputes in a less acrimonious way and not look to government to necessarily do it for them. With the right tools and information, most separating couples shouldn't need to take their disputes to court. And that means mothers and fathers stepping up and taking responsibility for their own separation where that's possible. And together, working through the practicalities and always remembering to put their children first. And this requires a system that enables them to do that. Now, I'm a strong supporter of family mediation in the private law process. Mediation does enable partnerships to take their, and all the parties to take ownership of their own dispute and helps them to reach an agreement rather than be subject to a court-ordered one in which one party or both parties may feel that they are not properly served or get something that they may not want. However, I accept that there are other ways in which parties can be helped to make their own arrangements. For example, the Separating Parents Information Programme, or a website such as the service offered by the Department of Work and Pensions to enable parents to resolve disputes over child maintenance. This is why I would like to see a responsive system which is not a one-size-fits-all. I want to introduce an end-to-end, user-focused buffet of services. I want to see a system which minimises the impact of separation on parents and on their children. Our Varying Path to Justice report shows that people feel they would benefit from clear and timely information around the options available to them to help them resolve their problems, especially online. And we'll be looking at that as we consider how best to help those going through separation.